in Nosen or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.
Hello, welcome to National Discourse. This beautiful day is another day for us to discuss a national concern. Of course, you know, we are not just restricted to discussing politics in National Discourse. Whatever thing that is of national concern to Nigerians, that is what we discuss in National Discourse. With me in the studio today is Dr. Samuel Adeyemi. Hope I'm correct, sir. Adeyi.
Yeah.
You're welcome, sir, to National Discourse. Of course, when you hear Doctor is on National Discourse, you should know the kind of topic or relatively we should be discussing today. Now, in 1969, we are aware that a certain virus was discovered in a town called Lassa in Borno State of Nigeria. That virus is called Lassa fever. And that virus led to the death of 2 missionaries that came to work in Nigeria. And since 1969 to date, that virus has been a concern in West African countries, ranging from Nigeria, you see Liberia, and Ghana, and the rest of other West African countries. Now, in 1996, 2016, for example, Nigeria witnessed the worst outbreak of this virus again that led to the death of 154 people, with other people that were put on surveillance. In 2017, we witnessed this virus again in Nigeria. About 501 people, was recorded, and then amongst which includes 140 deaths, including children, women, and men. And here again, Lassa fever returns in Nigeria of Ebonyi State, a southeast state in Nigeria. Sir, that brings us to what we are discussing today.
Okay.
We are looking at the return of Lassa fever in Nigeria. But we'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll go straight looking at Lassa fever, what has been the cause of Lassa fever, what is still the cause of Lassa fever, and if Lassa fever was discovered in Nigeria, why are we still experiencing Lassa fever in this country? That is all we'll be discussing. We'll go for a short break. That will be when we return. Please stay tuned, Nigerians. Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, okay, all the vehicles we're going to use, all should come from in Nosen or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.
You're welcome back. We are still discussing, or we are yet to discuss, the return of Lassa fever in Nigeria. Now, before we went for that break, I gave us the history of what Lassa fever has been like, how we have experienced Lassa fever or witnessed Lassa fever as a nation in Nigeria. Now, today, Lassa fever returns to Ebonyi State. As of yesterday, about 4 deaths have been recorded, including 3 health workers, amongst whom are 2 doctors and a nurse. Now, we have 139 people still under surveillance, which have led to the shutdown of all the schools in Ebonyi State. Sir, the return of Lassa fever in Ebonyi State.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lassa fever has been a disease as an illness that has been in Nigeria for a very long time, like you said. has been discovered in Nigeria since 1969, and basically it has claimed life and is still claiming life. And the reason why this is still on is basically because we've not been able to properly curtail the spread of this disease. And it's painful that some as a part of the death recorded are mostly the health workers. You see, a doctor,
because they're always the first point of contact. Exactly,
because they're always the first point of contact. But this disease still remains in Nigeria. This disease has been almost like a thorn on our flesh in Nigeria. And if you look at the reason why this is on is because, like I said earlier, we've not been able to adequately curtail the spread of this disease. Now, this disease, like we know that it's basically being spread by rats. It's a particular species of rat. Okay. But you discover that people still consume, or even consume food which are being contaminated by this rat itself, or people still even consume the rat as meat itself. That will still boil down to the fact that, maybe the state of the country, there's no money and people will try to go to the bush to get bush meat and the rest. And by the time this virus still homes within this particular rat, and when individuals in the rural areas particularly get this meat or get this rat and consume them, they start coming down with this particular illness. But the question is, are we now going to say that we should not eat bush meat again? Or are we now going to say that we stop eating rats again? I think personally that the government needs to play a major role in this, as well as we individuals, trying to avoid this consuming infected organisms, as in this consuming rats or consuming meat already infected by this virus.
Okay, sir. You mentioned a particular species of rats, right?
Yes.
Is responsible for this. What species of rat is that?
Okay, the species of rat responsible for this is called Mastomyces nataliensis.
I'm not sure I can pronounce that word.
Mastomyces nataliensis. Now, this rat basically is a multi-mammoth rat. That is, it has many breasts, and the breast spreads from the forehinds to the hind hinge of the rat. Okay. So usually what we say, since we cannot actually restrict people from eating rats, but whenever they see rats or they kill the quote unquote bushmeat that contains this kind of these features, having multiple breasts, it's better not to consume them.
Okay, so it's from the rat that has multiple breasts.
Basically from the rat that has multiple breasts. Okay. But this rat that has multiple breasts can still infect foodstuffs. I don't know whether you've seen sometimes on the main road along some places you see where some people spread cassavas on the road. Some people spread
especially Benue State.
Benue State, traveling. You see even tomatoes, pepper on the roads, and before you know, these rats basically feed on these things too. And as they feed, they pass out their stool, they pass out their urine in this,
and those things can contaminate the food.
Those things contain the virus itself of an infected rat. Funny enough, this particular virus does not even harm the rat.
Wow.
It doesn't harm the rat at all. It doesn't kill the rat.
But it's a major carrier.
But the rat is a major carrier of this particular organism. So once it passes through or it feeds on the this already spread foods on the main road or not properly kept food, they can pass urine and stool into it, and then people in that particular area will now consume that particular food or that particular feed. That particular food contain that virus, and that's the mode of spread of that virus. And that mode of spread of the virus is via aerosol. It can actually spread through air. And that's from rats to humans. Okay. But from human to human, it's what.
Don't worry, sir. We are still coming there. Now, I just want, most times people misunderstand the concept of this transfer of the virus from rat to human. As I said, let's keep that aside. Now, let's still deal with this rat. Now, the normal rat that we find in our houses, for example, doesn't have two breasts.
Okay.
Those rats are the rats, the ones that has two breasts, I believe, are the ones that stay in the bush.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay, if I'm wrong, just correct me. Now, how does the people living in their homes get infected with this virus?
Okay.
Aside the food, which the one in the bush or the one that has two breasts, contaminates the people living in their houses, in their homes.
Okay, let me use the rural area for example. Now, in the rural area, we already have houses close to the bush. Remember that these rats, whether mastomyces, natalensis that I mentioned, or other species of rats, they do not have a particular home. Some will actually home in the house itself, while some will actually home in the bush. Remember that those rats will actually, what they do is to look for a place where they can find food to eat and shelter. So if the home now becomes a very good shelter for that natalensis, mastomyces natalensis, it will now leave the bush and come to the house and stay. Now, and since they wander about, they can, since they wander about, foods are not properly kept. This particular rat would infest them. Now, people do go to the bush to actually try to kill meat, what we call the bush meat and the rest. And if some people go ahead to even kill all forms of rats, whether the normal big mouse for bush meat or the normal natalensis, and what they bring home is just to consume. Now, the mode of spread is almost as if it's from the rural area to the urban area. Me and you, basically in this urban area, will not want to see rat and kill and eat. It's basically those that are in the rural area, in the villages. And take for example, when those people get those meat consumed, being infected by that particular organism, you find that this person is sick and that person is sick. The person leaves the village and come to the city, and that's how the disease keeps spreading from the rural areas and down to the city.
All right, so we'll be going for a short break, and when we come back, we continue with the mode of spread of this virus of Lassa fever. Please stay tuned. Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, all the vehicles we're going to use all should come from a nursing or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.
Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, all the vehicles we're going to use all should come from a nursing or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.
Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, all the vehicles we're going to use all should come from a nursing or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.
Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, okay, all the vehicles we're going to use all should come from in Nosen or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, okay, all the vehicles we're going to use all should come from in Nosen or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of employment, unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse. Weekdays on NCTV.
Yes, so welcome back from that break. So, sir, we were talking about the transfer of this virus from rats to humans.
Yes.
Now we are done with that. I want you to intimate us on the transfer of the virus from human to human.
Okay. Transfer of the virus from human to human, it's basically in a context nosocomial infection. That's nosocomial infection. That's hospital-acquired infection.
Okay.
As I'm using for that center, for example. Now, when this individual already having the illness and manifesting the symptoms present to the hospital with this particular disease. Now, the healthcare, as in the healthcare delivery, maybe the doctor or the nurses can at first will not actually know this person has this disease, and can several times touch and then have contact with secretions and so on from this particular
individual. And that's why
individual.
it hits them first.
That's why it hits the doctor first. Now, if that particular environment or that particular hospital or that area do not have good healthcare precautionary system, the doctor or the healthcare giver can transfer it from that same patient, if not properly isolated, to another patient. So somebody can come with disease A and then later present with disease B, or might not even go back with disease B.
Might just
die. For example, now let's say disease B is the Lassa, and then if the doctor or the nurse or the healthcare giver actually do expose himself to this individual, I mean that it doesn't, as in it didn't isolate the individual. It can transfer this virus from this A to B, and B will not have the illness and might not even survive from the illness. So that's a way at which the virus is being transferred as a viral nosocomial infection. That's where the individual gets, where the doctor himself gets direct access to the active form of the virus in the infected individual.
Okay.
So usually you see that it hits doctors first, and doctors might not want to run away when they see the patient like that.
Yeah, you
definitely, with sympathy and the rest, you want to care for.
Of course, that's the training, right?
That's the training.
You have to
my
save
patient
lives.
Comes first.
But talking about saving lives, most times we see different kinds of doctors, and most times you begin to wonder if they actually pass through this training other people pass through. I don't know if probably it's a personal training thing. Not only restricted to doctors, health workers, especially the nurses. Most times you see some stories online talking about people's horrible experience at hospitals, and most times you see people losing their loved ones out of carelessness, according to them, of the health workers. So when you see people giving their lives, we can remember the Ebola case
exactly.
of our doctors that we gave national prominence because of the role they played in combating the dreaded disease, Ebola.
Yes.
Now, the training other people have, is this the training this other part has? You know, when you walk into the hospital, it's discover that the health workers are just carefree. They're not interested in the life, you know, and that you can even see in the attitude, the attitudinal display they give to the patients. We ask in this same profession, it still encompasses the same people and nobody checks them?
The medical career is a very noble profession, it's a noble profession, and every doctor is being trained to be at his best and to be at his peak. But I also want to remind you that we are humans first before we became doctors. People might have their personal issues and the whole stuff, but I believe that every doctor wants to give his best to every patient he come across.
Now let's go to the means of transfer. Apart from, you know, the disease is 24 hours. Am I correct? 48 hours.
Yes, as in there's what we call an incubation period. Incubation period is from when the organism enters into the individual to when it may actually manifest as the disease itself. For Lassa fever, it's between 6 to 21 days. Yes, it's between 6 to 21 days. Usually, there are many individuals that can actually contract this virus and become asymptomatic. There's no symptom showing that there's illness. So usually, when the incubation period elapses or is complete already, then the person might now manifest with the features of the disease himself.
Now, what are the features?
The features of the disease itself is, number one, from the Lassa fever. That's temperature usually greater than 38.
Above normal?
Yeah, above normal. Above normal, 38 degrees centigrade. You can get some 39, some 40, and some 41. And usually this fever, it's not like the conventional fever you find in malaria. That maybe, sometimes you take some drugs like anti-malarials or paracetamol and the fever comes down. But the fever in Lassa, it might come down, but it will still remain. You see the individual complain of fever for 2 weeks.
At a stretch?
Yeah, 2 weeks at a stretch. So there's usually this severe rise in temperature, fever. Then the next thing the person complains of is severe headache. There is serious pounding headache. Now, usually, Lassa fever is sometimes misdiagnosed for malaria, sometimes misdiagnosed for typhoid.
Still at the incubation period?
Still at the incubation period. Sometimes misdiagnosed. Reason being that it has almost the same features as that of malaria and typhoid. So, but there are some other distinct things you actually see in this patient that might now tell you that, this is not malaria, this is not typhoid. This could actually be this Lassa, which include the person might actually start vomiting blood or coughing out blood. Blood can start seeping out from the skin, as we call it a part of the pathogenesis called endothelial damage.
From any part of the skin?
Any part of the skin.
Wow.
Any part of the skin. The person can actually be bleeding from the nose, and be bleeding from the ear.
Without cause?
Without cause. This bleeding is different from the normal conventional bleeding. You see, maybe find some children just bleed on a normal day, but now this bleeding with this high grade fever, the person will now complain of generalized body pain. There's joint pain, there's weakness. The person might now appear malay, that is lethargic, very weak, not being able to do anything at all. Then this individual might now complain of chest pain, back pain, and the rest, and then person if you see this individual, the person appears very, very sick. So by the time you take all these symptoms together, you now discover that you now feel that this is not malaria, this is not typhoid, this is suspected case until it's proven that it's Lassa.
Okay. Now there's a particular way the patient get tested.
Yes.
And then the result gives the Lassa fever virus.
Yes.
Now, why I'm asking this question is because the people that are watching, most of them are not medical practitioners, like myself. You know, so we needed distinct features that anybody, a common person, can just dictate from afar.
Yes.
Like when you see someone vomiting, remember there are still some illness that have vomiting as part of their symptoms.
Yes, that's true.
Of course, starting from even pregnancy, there's not even a sickness.
That's true.
Now you still have some sicknesses that have bleeding as part of its symptoms. All right.
Yes.
But what I was asking, I'm just looking at something that if you sight someone from afar,
Yes.
you should be able to know that this is Lassa fever.
Yes. Yes.
So probably you report the case or something.
Yes,
So
yes.
looking at that thing that is very distinct, that an ordinary person
Yes. Okay.
can look at and then knows that there's Lassa fever.
The symptoms the person you look out for is very high grade fever, like I said.
Okay.
Temperature very, very high. Usually
never gets down.
That never gets down.
Okay.
Usually we describe it as when you touch the individual, you can't hold the individual.
Wow.
That it's very hot and you have to take your hands off. That's one of the temperature. Then secondly, you find the person bleeding from series of orifices in the body, from the nose, from the ear, from the skin. Then you find the person actually very, very weak, very lethargic, and the person may actually complain of chest pain and back pain. Now, those are the clinical features you see, and you say, I'm suspecting that this person might actually have this Lassa fever, and the temperature must be this rising. The fever usually is that fever that persists despite treatment of common illness such as malaria and typhoid. So you say, okay, this person might actually, I suspect, okay, that person has fever. Then the last thing you actually look out for, that will actually say, okay, yes, I feel. You might ask the person, did you consume any bushmeat recently? Did you visit endemic areas now in the country, such as this in Ebonyi State? Did you visit those places recently? Did anybody leave that particular area to come and visit you recently? So by the time you get all this you can now say, this person might actually be suspected Lassa fever, until you do investigation and prove that the person has the disease.
Okay, sir. Now, within the incubation period, could someone be infected?
Yes. Within the incubation period is just like the homing period, where this person, almost like the person grooms
That's from the point
virus,
of contact
till when the person manifests with the symptoms.
So anybody could be infected?
Yeah, anybody could
regardless whether the symptoms are showing or not.
And that person can be infected once they come in contact with this infected individual.
Now, coming in contact, you're talking about contact with just a touch?
No.
Okay.
It doesn't mean we shouldn't touch this individual having as even the Lassa fever. Usually it's contact with secretions and tissues.
Just like Ebola.
Just like Ebola.
Ebola has to do with fluids.
Fluids, secretions and tissues, just like contact with blood. So someone might actually be in the hospital and when trying to set up a line or get a needle prick. I'm trying to set up a line for this patient with this particular fever, and then the patient maybe shakes his hand, and that needle, after piercing that patient's hand, pierces the doctor's hand. Usually, there can be a transfer of those as a virus from that particular individual to the doctor. Now, if the individual, that's via needle prick. Secondly, if the doctor actually gets in contact with the fluid, blood, this in the fluid itself, blood itself. And thirdly, if the this individual or the doctor or the healthcare giver gets in contact with secretions such as vomit.
Okay.
That is vomit. When the person will have vomit and then maybe secretions lagging around the bed or around the tissue used or around the gloves used, and the person gets in contact and has a broken skin, for example, you can now get the infection, because usually God created the skin as a very good protective barrier against illnesses itself. Okay,
now, so it doesn't have to do with the heat from our body, the sweat from our body.
As in the sweat from the body.
Yes.
Some people might actually say yes, it can transmit it, while some other persons will say, it's not sufficient enough to transmit it. But what you actually look at is the immune system of the other individual coming in contact with this person. Okay. Usually the immune system is very strong, and all the sweat secretions and the rest, it won't pass through. Okay,
we are listening to Dr. Adeyi Samuel, and we are still talking about the symptoms of Lassa fever. And of course, Lassa fever returns to Nigeria and is still now in Ebonyi State, the southeast, one of the southeast states of Nigeria. And then Dr. Samuel has been telling us the symptoms, which is ranging from vomiting,
yes,
right? And then you have blood oozing out from different parts of the body without cause, of course. And then if you are witnessing joint pain, heart pain, back pain, and weakness, general weakness beyond normal, and of course the fever, yes, the fever that is very high that can't come down. If you have anybody, that is living with the symptoms, you really have to alert the health workers within your area for us to be safe. Because right now, 4 deaths as of yesterday has been recorded, and then 139 persons have been put under surveillance. Yes, sir. Back to Ebonyi State, the health workers were actually protesting that their colleagues just died because of lack of protection. They didn't have the necessary things, the necessary gadgets, let me use that word, in your profession to use, to guard themselves against this. How do you see that?
Well, that's true. That's true. I will strongly stand by that as true. I remember when I was in Lokoja, and one of my colleagues too had contact with a patient that we suspect that person has this Lassa fever, and we became scared. Reason being that this is a very good friend and he's a very jovial person, and in our mind we're like, this guy will soon die. But thank God that we were able to curtail the illness very fast, and then we were able to do some investigations and the rest. But like you said, the major problem is that we are not well equipped with the gadget. You find out that in some areas, what you basically find in that area is just glove. Now,
and glove is not sufficient enough to combat this.
To combat this. Now, I don't know if you remember the period of Ebola. There is this outfit everybody wears. Now, the reason is that this virus is very deadly. The virus is very deadly, just like Ebola virus. It belongs to the same family as Ebola virus. Now, we do not, let me say the government have not actually provided adequate gadget for us. Remember that we doctors too, we have families too.
Yes.
I won't want to expose myself to one particular illness and take it back to my family, take it back to my home, despite the fact I'm delivering healthcare system. So in as much as we want to work, you find out that there are some infrared temperature monitor you use to monitor the temperature of this individual.
It's not provided. Or enough.
You still probably have to use the conventional one you put in the patient's in the patient armpit, and then check the person.
And then while doing that, the patient can actually vomit?
Vomit. Apart from that, remember I said that there's bleeding from the skin and every part of this area, because there's what we call platelet dysfunction, which the virus actually causes in the pathogenesis. That is, the person cannot actually control bleeding as normal. Once someone sustains injury, even without applying any medications at all, the bleeding stops, thanks to the platelets in the body. But when this virus comes to play, it causes platelet dysfunction. That is, the person cannot actually control its bleeding. So blood starts oozing out from various areas in the body. And there's this apron which has a series of disinfectants inside of it. Now, the doctor will probably just wear his clothes and wear a ward coat and not wear that particular apron. And the doctor is meant to wear a cap, a face mask, a glass, then a boot.
Just like the gadgets in Ebola.
In Ebola. And apart from that, these patients are meant to be isolated in a separate ward.
Okay.
They're not meant to be kept in wards where other patients are. So that whenever you go to see this patient, you just come into that place, dress in that outfit,
that way,
see that patient.
Those particular patients.
Yes, those particular patients. See that patient, and then. But since you don't have much wards, sometimes you just have to manage them in the same wards.
Okay, now we are not just battling gadgets for doctors.
Yes, we're not just battling gadgets.
We are still battling space
in the hospital.
In the hospital.
Yes.
Because now you're battling for the doctors, you're battling for other patients in the ward.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, and just imagine where you don't have spaces in the ward. Sometimes you might actually have to admit those patients on the ground or outside. You want to find a way to the same hospital. You want to find a way to isolate them and still give them healthcare. We can't return those patients back to their various homes and say, go back, we don't have this. There's compassion. Nobody wants to see a fellow human being dying and say you should go back home. So it's so the problem is not just the doctors don't want to work. We want to work, but we don't actually have those gadgets. We don't actually have the manpower itself. There are not enough spaces provided to admit, to actually admit this particular patient.
Wow, the Medical Doctors Association, I don't know, what are they doing about it? Have they spoken up?
I think by now issues are really rising up already, because we are losing our colleagues, and it's quite painful.
It's very unfortunate, because these are people that gave up their lives just to save other people.
we're losing our colleagues, and it's quite painful. I think, as in, I know for sure that the NMA is basically working on something to see, the Nigerian Medical Association, to see that this illness do not actually just destroy the common man, even the healthcare giver. If this illness continues and destroys all the doctors in the whole Nigeria, the healthcare system of Nigeria will definitely collapse. And before you know, people will not want to just deliver their best to patients because of they don't have everything required. Now, this patient with Lassa can actually survive. Not all who die can actually survive. Or as one depends on when they present to the hospital and how early they present to the hospital and how early it's detected that they have this particular virus. But if they come to the hospital very early and I'm suspecting this and I don't have that gadget, I'll definitely not give my best to that particular patient. In as much as I'm trying to lose that patient at that moment. I definitely might actually lose that patient in that process.
Now, talking about combating, apart from the gadgets and the needed space in the hospitals, various hospitals and all that, let's look at the attention given to these patients. Now, what is the proper medical attention to be given? You know, when you have discovered, you have carried out your test, and then you've discovered that this is actually Lassa fever. Okay. What is the proper medical attention that ought to be given to this patient?
Okay, the first and foremost, the proper medical attention, the first thing to do is to isolate the patient. Take that patient from wherever he is, because most patients present to the A&E as an emergency, where you find many people there. Once you suspect and you feel, take that patient away from that particular area to the isolated ward for infectious disease. Now, once the patient is already in that particular ward, or as in that particular space where it's being managed, the next thing is we manage Lassa symptomatically. We manage it symptomatically. With the symptoms the patient presents with, we just keep trying, like, antagonizing those symptoms from coming to play. Well, usually we give drugs such as ribavirin. It's a very good drug given to patients with Lassa fever. We usually give the drug in large doses initially, 100 milligram per kg, starts then 25 milligram.
And the body system is able to carry that?
And the body system is able to carry that.
A normal person will not be able to take that.
No. As in body, but because now we're trying to look at the way to destroy and reduce that viral load and try to reduce the virulence of that particular virus. So we give that amount of drugs, 100 milligrams starts, then later 25 milligram for the first 3 days, then 12.5 milligram the next 4 days. Then we now start giving, the person is losing fluid. Some of these patients present with vomiting and diarrhea. They keep vomiting and they keep having diarrhea. So they're losing fluid. So what we try to do is to replenish the fluid being lost by setting up drip and then replenishing this fluid. Then another thing is they come down with severe temperature. That's in high temperature, like I said. So we try to give them drugs that will reduce the temperature down to normal, and then counsel the patient and advise the patient that you definitely feel better. That we're trying our best.
Because people can die out of psychological feelings.
Yes.
This is this deadly disease that's everywhere.
Yes.
How are you sure I'm going to survive it?
Yes. Honestly, as in when I discovered how grievous this or how big this disease was, when I actually had that, my friend I mentioned, suspected, as in that, okay, like maybe the guy, we have suspected case of, we will not confirm it.
Sure.
But this guy could not just do anything. He was just down. He was just down.
You know that feeling?
Yes.
I'm going to die in the next few days.
Yes, he was down. So we kept like, relax, nothing's wrong. And since he's our colleague, we have to give him the best. And thank God he's alive today. And there's no problem with him. So it's, as in, we manage this patient symptomatically. And then over time, more or less like 2 weeks to 3 weeks with these particular medications, the patient recovers. But sometimes this patient do not recover fully. They come down with some complications too.
Wow.
Now, some complications such as, we call it sensorineural deafness, that they will obviously not be able to hear clearly again. So as in basically sometimes it affects one of the ears, sometimes it might affect both ears. But if you look at it, it's better the person is alive than the person is dead without. So sensorineural deafness, which is a complication of this particular disease.
All right, now from 1969 till date, we as a country, and of course West Africa in general, we are still trying to combat this deadly virus. Remember, it started here with us.
Yes.
It started right here with us.
Yes.
So the question is, why have we not been able to, bring this to a halt, like total curb this out? Are we supposed to go into the bush and kill all the rats? or what is the proper method or way to bring this to a stop, to a total stop?
Okay. The proper way, I feel, they'll bring this disease to a total stop will actually be participation of everybody in different sector, from the government itself, from the individuals itself, and from the public generally.
What is going to be the role of the government in it?
The role of the government in it will basically be trying to, if there is food,
okay,
if there is food,
okay,
and there is no hunger, people will not go as far as going to look for those things as source of food.
Okay.
So if if government will try to create job opportunities and create this, and people will definitely, hunger will actually cease. That's on the part of the government. Then secondly, in the healthcare system, if government is able to provide all the gadgets required for healthcare givers to actually deliver their best to this patient, which will also be nice itself. Then still in the then for the individuals, now people basically in the rural areas, it will be from hygiene ourselves, as in hygiene from the rural areas, or hygiene general, as in this in the public, in that it will be nice to spread your food
along the
roads, or spread your foods in the public where these where these rodents can actually get access to. Then if the food should be prepared, it should be properly cooked. Usually the virus do not survive above temperature greater than 56 Fahrenheit.
Wow. Okay, now, okay, sorry sir. Now, if there is a food, a particular food item that's contaminated by the virus, and okay, let's say for example cassava, that's the normal gari that we talk about, and it was actually spread on the road, and this rodent, crossed it or deposited some things on it, which means the food is contaminated.
Yes.
And in the process of making this food, the process of making eba, how it is.
Yes.
Is it possible that the virus could be killed?
Yeah, it's possible the virus could be killed, but one unique thing that this virus possesses is that it possesses what we call a viral envelope. This viral envelope, just like a case that surrounds it and keeps it in that particular state, as in keeps it like an envelope, like a protector.
Yes.
So no matter how much the heat comes, it just hits the protector and not gets to the virus itself.
So there is no how you could maybe use the process of boiling.
Yeah,
or cooking.
as in you could actually boil and then boil the food or cook the food to a reasonable good. As in, funny enough, people like in the rural areas, their foods are partially done. They don't actually cook the food to the end.
That's true.
It's okay, it's done, and they start eating and the whole stuff. So, but if you can actually, like I said, temperature above 56 Fahrenheit is one temperature that this organism basically will not be able to survive above. Then if you can actually get to that particular temperature, or as in temperature and above it, you can be sure that you can actually reduce the load of this virus in that particular food, that is, it will destroy it. But however, if it doesn't get to that particular temperature, the organism itself has a viral envelope that covers it, and like a capsule that protects it from harmful substance from getting across to it, so that by the time it gets to the susceptible host, it then replicates and does its harm.
Okay, sir. We all know the usefulness of salt.
Yes.
Even if we don't know, at least we have heard. They'll tell you to wash your vegetables with salt to prevent certain organisms from permeating the body. Our fruits, and also wash with salt and all that. Now, is salt, does it have the capacity to kill this virus? Salt and ordinary water?
No.
Or salt and hot water?
No.
It can't.
Salt itself cannot kill the virus.
Okay.
Salt itself cannot kill
the virus. So the virus must pass through the process of cooking or boiling?
Cooking or boiling.
To a reasonable
extent. And that way at which sometimes we can, during the time when we had Ebola and even this Lassa period, we advocate that people use hand sanitizers. You get hand sanitizers as disinfectants.
Okay, now, because you definitely have contact with people.
You understand? So these hand sanitizers basically have what we call hydrochloric acid in it, that destroys, just like that, this in jig. It destroys destroy the organism or reduce the organism, as in when one get exposed to it. But nobody's advising anyone to go and drink jig.
Of course, this is very harmful to the body.
To go and drink gin or take, very harmful.
Very harmful.
Or to go and take or swallow.
Don't go and drink
gin or go and swallow hand sanitizer. But you can actually contain, because our hands is usually a very high mode of spread of this disease. You get, I shake this person with this contact.
Yeah.
I get on
because really, right now, for example, you're probably dressed.
Yes.
And your clothes have covered up the other areas of the body.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just your hand that is exposed. Yeah, and of course you can't use your face and greet someone.
No.
Yeah, so whether all the symptoms that we mentioned, it has to pass through the hand.
Yeah, as in all the mode of transport,
yes,
the hands is usually the fastest means via which is transported via. So usually we advocate our hand sanitizers, and then proper washing of hands and proper hand sanitizing actually reduce the spread of this virus from individual to another particular individual.
Now we have dwelt so much on how to curb the menace when it comes.
Yes.
Remember, starting from the government involvement,
yes,
providing adequate gadgets,
yes,
and then of course they're talking about providing employment for people not to get into the bush
and then
to look for what to eat.
Yes.
And you're talking about providing adequate space,
yes,
spacious facilities in every state,
yes,
so that once it comes on, you will see where to isolate these individuals and put them under surveillance.
Yes.
Now, the question I want to ask is it not possible that there is a total eradication of this virus? Let's not wait for it to, they say prevention is better than cure. How can we prevent the reoccurrence of this virus? Because we look at the history, it's been coming off and on. And that from 2015 till now, it's been visiting like every year. It manifests, kills people, and then it's being combated, it goes away, it comes back again.
Yes.
Right. Now, is it not possible that this particular virus is totally eradicated?
Yeah, it's possible that the virus can totally be eradicated.
What's stopping us?
Well, it might actually be a bit difficult or challenging.
Okay. Why?
Because reason being that if we can actually curtail the organism, the vector spreading this particular disease, which is rats itself, to get stuff that actually kill rats and eradicate rats in our environment, or avoid keeping those stuff that rats will definitely come and feed on. Then if we can reduce the vector, then we can actually reduce the spread of this particular disease. So now reducing the vector will actually take individual role itself. That's try to keep the environment in that particular place where the person lives very clean. Then try to get traps around the house for rats that will kill the rats, or try to get what we popularly known as rat poison to actually kill the particular rat. And then people should avoid consuming those particular type of rat. But however, you can't minimize. If you say people should not eat that particular type of rat, what if that rat urinated along a tract and another rat, which is not the mystomasis natalensis, passes through it and then gets infected through the urine? So it's possible, but it's going to be difficult, but it's actually achievable.
Okay, now I know apart from West African countries, this virus probably has not been recorded in other Western or developed countries. So what is the difference? Is it that they don't have rodents in their places, or this particular rodent that carries this virus does not exist in their places?
Usually what you say could actually be a reason why these rodents, as in why those other African countries do not have this illness. Now, you discover that what the whole call climate, as in the climate change differs in some areas. Some of all these rodents will not be able to survive in that particular area. And like I said, they wander about looking for food. Now, if they don't find refuge in those particular places, they won't
exist there.
And since it's more confined within this West Africa, that's why you find it there. But however, it can actually spread to other places, other countries. Not be via rodent now, but via individuals, humans. Let's say, for example, somebody infected with the virus travels leaving this country to another country. If you remember how Ebola basically came to Nigeria that wonderful man left his country from Liberia and came down to our country. Some people will actually say that the reason he left, it was sent.
So we are saying is it was politically minded.
It was politically minded. Some other people will actually say it's because Liberia could not actually control the illness itself, so they needed a bigger country to, so they allowed it. So, and as in, if that individual travels from that particular place to another area, it can actually transfer this illness to other persons. Now, if you look, for example, some white doctors were actually in Liberia during the time of Ebola, and then if you look at their healthcare system, is super good. As soon as they discover that there are two of their citizens have this illness, they came, flew them down, isolated them, and then attacked the illness. But African countries will still developing and will still definitely get there, I know.
So we need time to get there.
We need time to get there. But
so before we actually get there, we have to help ourselves as Nigerians.
We have to help ourselves as Nigerians.
We have heard everything that Dr. Samuel told us, preventive measures. Now that we are not sure we can totally eradicate this virus, we can't stop it from coming on. So what we do as Nigerians, as good citizens, we have to keep our environment very, very clean.
Yes.
You have to stay away from anything that will bring contamination, of course, from this virus to yourself. And of course, because we are humans, other people that are infected, we are not better than them. That you are not infected does not mean that the person infected is a sinner. Let me come from the religious part of it, or does not know what he's doing. So when we see people who, show the symptoms that he has told us, we'll have to be on the lookout and alert our medical personnel. Let's not say after another one, then you isolate yourself from the person. When the person is dying out of ignorance, the person doesn't even know what is happening to her. So let us please be careful as Nigerians. Keep the environment clean. Do not allow rodents, especially the rats. Because you're not a medical doctor, you might not be able to differentiate between the one that has the breast and the one that does not have the breast. Just keep your home safe and free from rodents, especially rats, for us to be safe in this period. And for our people in Ebonyi State, we send our heartfelt, I don't know what to say, sympathy to you. And for people that have lost their loved ones, especially the Medical Association, we also send out our heartfelt sympathy to you. And we pray that the government, swing into action fast to bring this under control so that it won't spread across every other state, or rather it won't continue to spread in Ebonyi State of Nigeria. And that is where we actually stop today on National Discourse. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
You have given us a lot of word, because most of us really don't know how in-depth this virus is, or how it can actually transfer from one person to another. Thank you for giving us an eye-opener to this. Thank you very much, Nigerians, for listening. We hope everything that we've heard today will put it into practice to keep ourselves and our environment safe. Remember, when the death tolls rises up, it affects the economy.
Yes.
We have to stay alive to make Nigeria a better place. Stay blessed and have a beautiful day. Welcome to National Discourse. Fuel scarcity has been a problem in Nigeria from time immemorial.
Current affairs.
We have to fix our refineries.
Politics. It's interactive.
You can imagine if states, the federal government and state government, say, okay, all the vehicles we're going to use, all should come from Innocent or any other local manufacturer of automobiles in Nigeria.
If a woman cannot build the family or her family, how can she build a nation? So it starts with the family.
Well, if you talk of unemployment in Nigeria is one of the indicators of socio-economic problems that we're having in the country. Let me just say it from 1960 to date.
National Discourse, weekdays on NCTV.